Across the globe, traditional diets, once rooted in whole grains, legumes, fresh vegetables, fruits, and modest portions of animal products, are being rapidly displaced by modern, industrialized eating patterns. This shift, fueled by globalization, urbanization, and the global consolidation of food systems, has dramatically altered what and how people eat. As multinational food corporations expand their reach and processed food becomes more accessible and aggressively marketed, many nations have experienced a parallel rise in obesity rates. These transformations are not coincidental, they are deeply intertwined, revealing how cultural identity, dietary customs, and metabolic health are being reshaped in the era of ultra-processed convenience. In many countries, traditional meals were naturally balanced, high in fiber, low in added sugars, and composed of locally sourced, minimally processed ingredients. These diets evolved over generations to suit local climates, agricultural practices, and cultural rhythms. In the Mediterranean, meals revolved around olive oil, vegetables, legumes, and fish. In Japan, rice, seaweed, fermented soy, and small portions of fish created a nutrient-rich, low-calorie pattern. In India, lentils, whole grains, spices, and ghee formed a base of anti-inflammatory and plant-heavy meals. These patterns were not only nutritionally sound but deeply social. Meals were often shared, prepared from scratch, and integrated into daily routines with care and mindfulness. However, as globalization accelerated, these food cultures began to erode. Global trade liberalization, urban migration, and the spread of Western-style supermarkets and fast food chains introduced new, highly processed products into daily life. Shelf-stable snacks, sugar-sweetened beverages, instant noodles, packaged meats, and frozen ready meals gradually replaced home-cooked staples. The appeal was understandable. These foods were convenient, often cheaper, and heavily promoted as symbols of modernity, prosperity, and global belonging. This cultural shift toward calorie-dense, nutrient-poor foods has had a clear impact. Countries that once had some of the lowest obesity rates in the world are now seeing rapid increases. In China, the traditional diet, largely plant-based with modest meat intake, has given way to greater consumption of sugary beverages, processed meats, and fried fast foods. In Mexico, the introduction of sodas and industrial snacks into even the most remote regions has paralleled skyrocketing rates of obesity and type 2 diabetes. In the Middle East, where traditional foods were nutrient-rich and often eaten communally, Western-style processed products have become dominant, especially among children and urban dwellers. Even nations like Brazil, which once championed national dietary guidelines rooted in food culture and minimal processing, are seeing cultural erosion under the pressure of global food conglomerates. What makes this trend especially concerning is that processed foods are not simply higher in calories, they are specifically engineered to be overconsumed. With their soft textures, low fiber, high sugar and fat content, and synthetic flavor enhancers, they override satiety cues and encourage constant snacking. Traditional diets, by contrast, provided a natural break on overeating. They required preparation, eating was often slower, and meals were more satiating due to fiber, protein, and water content. As these cultural practices decline, so too does the natural regulation of appetite. The transformation is not only biological, but psychological. Food has always been a form of cultural expression, a way of preserving identity, family ties, and intergenerational wisdom. As processed food culture becomes the norm, young generations are growing up without deep connections to their food heritage. Home cooking declines, knowledge of ingredients fades, and the pleasure of mealtime shifts from communal nourishment to solitary consumption of packaged products. This detachment from food origins makes it easier for harmful dietary patterns to take root. Yet the good news is that cultural dietary identity can be reclaimed. Several countries are beginning to re-embrace their culinary traditions as a form of nutritional and social resistance. Programs in Japan emphasize school lunches made from scratch with traditional foods. Brazil's national dietary guidelines explicitly discourage ultra-processed food consumption while celebrating traditional eating patterns. In Mediterranean nations, there is growing momentum to restore the olive oil-rich, plant-based model as both a health strategy and a cultural revival. Protecting and promoting traditional food cultures is not just about nostalgia, it is a powerful tool for reversing obesity trends. When people eat in alignment with their culinary heritage, they are more likely to consume nutrient-dense, lower-calorie foods, eat mindfully, and value meals as a social and restorative experience. Cultural pride in local foods can drive public health just as effectively as education or policy reform. In the broader picture, the globalization of food systems doesn't have to mean homogenization or health decline. With thoughtful intervention, it can also mean the sharing and preservation of diverse, healthy food traditions. But to reverse the rising tide of obesity, the focus must shift away from simply reducing individual calories and toward restoring cultural balance, reconnecting communities with the whole foods and shared rituals that once kept populations lean, nourished, and resilient.